Okay, so you know how tattoos are like everywhere these days, right?
Yeah.
And like everyone just kind of assumes they're safe.
Right.
But like, have you ever actually thought about what happens to that ink?
Like in the long term.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, most people probably don't think about it much.
I know I haven't.
Well, today we're going to dive into some new research that's looking at exactly that, the long-term effects of tattoos, and specifically whether they could be linked to certain types of cancers.
So like, is there something we should all be worried about with tattoos now?
Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. It's
Yeah.
important to look at the evidence carefully and understand what it really means before we jump to any conclusions. So yeah, we're going to take a deep dive into some recent findings from a study done at the University of Southern Denmark.
Denmark?
Yep. They have a really unique resource there, the Danish twin tattoo cohort, where they've collected data from over 5,900 twins.
Wow, that's a lot of twins.
It is, and it's incredibly valuable for this kind of research because you can compare twins where one has tattoos and the other doesn't.
And they're like genetically the same.
Exactly. So you can start to isolate the effect of the tattoo itself rather than other genetic or environmental factors.
That makes sense. So what did they find in this twin study?
Well, one of the most interesting things they discovered is that tattoo ink doesn't just stay in the skin.
Wait, really? I thought it did.
Yeah, that's what most people think. But this research actually shows that tiny particles of ink can migrate from the skin and end up accumulating in the lymph nodes.
Lymph nodes, like the things that swell up when you're sick.
Exactly. The lymph nodes are a vital part of your immune system. They help filter out harmful substances and fight off infections.
So if the ink is getting into the lymph nodes, that sounds like it could be bad news.
Well, that's what the researchers are concerned about. They think that this accumulation of ink particles in the lymph nodes could potentially lead to chronic inflammation.
Chronic inflammation. That's not good, right?
Not really. Chronic inflammation has been linked to all sorts of health problems, including an increased risk of cancer.
I see. So basically the body sees the ink as a foreign substance,
Right, and it tries to fight it off.
but it can't really get rid of it.
Exactly. So the immune system is constantly on alert, which can lead to this chronic inflammation.
Okay, so how big of a deal is this link between tattoos and cancer?
Well, the study found that the connection was strongest in people with large tattoos, specifically tattoos bigger than the size of a palm.
So like a full sleeve tattoo.
Yeah, something like that. For lymphoma, which is a type of cancer that affects the lymph nodes, people with large tattoos had nearly 3 times higher risk compared to those without tattoos.
3 times higher.
That's a lot.
It is. And it suggests that there might be a dose-response relationship, meaning the more ink you have, the higher your risk might be.
Yikes. So what about the different colors of ink? Do some colors pose a greater risk?
That's a great question. This particular study didn't find a clear link between specific ink colors and cancer risk.
So it doesn't really matter what color you get? Well, we can't say that for sure. It's possible that some ink colors might be more problematic than others.
Especially since we know some people have allergies to certain inks.
Right, and there's still a lot we don't know about the chemical composition of different inks and their long-term effects on the body.
But more research is definitely needed.
Absolutely. The researchers want to investigate exactly how ink particles affect the lymph nodes at a molecular level.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
They also want to see if certain subtypes of lymphoma are more strongly linked to tattoos than others.
Right, because it's possible that not all lymphomas are affected equally by tattoo ink.
This is all really fascinating stuff, especially when you consider how popular tattoos have become.
It really is. In Denmark, where this study was done, around 14% of the population has tattoos.
That's a pretty significant chunk of people.
And it's even higher among younger people. Like 30 to 40% of Danes under 35 have tattoos?
Wow, so it's becoming increasingly common.
Definitely. And it's a global trend. The popularity of tattoos has been rising steadily for the past few decades.
Which makes it even more important to understand any potential health risks.
Exactly. So to sum up this deep dive, the research suggests that there might be a link between tattoo ink migration to the lymph nodes and an increased risk of skin cancer and lymphoma, particularly with larger tattoos.
But we need more research to confirm this.
That's right. This is still early research, and we don't want to jump to any conclusions.
So what should people do with this information?
Well, it's important to be aware of these potential risks and to talk to your doctor if you have any concerns, especially if you have large tattoos.
Good advice. So as we wrap things up, here's a thought to ponder. Given the growing popularity of tattoos and this emerging research, what are the broader societal implications? How do we balance individual freedom of expression with the potential for long-term health risks?
That's a really important question. And it's one that we'll need to grapple with as more research comes to light.
Food for thought indeed.